you're watching The Money Show with me, Kavita Thaplial, and let's talk about investor profiles or investor personality, which is a very crucial aspect of your investment strategy. So I have Nirav Karkera, Head of Research, Fisdom, on board to explain all of this. Nirav, good evening and welcome to the show. A very important practice which an investor, he himself or herself should be doing even before approaching anyone or even a professional, to get a help for their financial planning or their investment portfolio. This is a very important part of your homework that you as an investor should be aware of. And when we talk about investor profile personalities, we are usually talking about the risk profile that they carry, so that it gets easier for them to understand the kind of investment options that are available for them, or they match, or the ones that match with their profile. So what kind of investor profiles are we talking about over here? A person who just cannot take risk, who's risk averse, a person who is very aggressive in nature when it comes to risk. Is it all related to risk?
Yeah, so there are a variety of ways in which one could classify a risk profile, or rather an investor profile. But yes, whenever we are talking about investing, risk becomes a part and parcel of this entire conversation, albeit a very integral one. So a lot of classification rests on the premise of the risk-taking ability and willingness of an investor. So generally, in common parlance, when we talk about an investor's risk, we refer to it as a risk profile. But very seldom does a person realize that a risk profile is made of two important components. That is an individual's risk-taking ability and the risk-taking willingness. A blended assessment of these two vectors gives a clear picture of what is the personality type of an investor in terms of risk. Obviously, there are various different ways in which investors could be classified basis the preferences, the restrictions. So, there could be a classification basis. What are the kind of preferred instruments or preferred asset classes of an investor? But most of this becomes inconsequential once we start having conversations around the risk aspect of life.
So when we talk about these profiles, do we have a suitable investment option for all of these risk profiles?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So, there are three primary risk profiles of an individual. Like you rightly said, it starts with risk-averse investors towards the far left. At the center, we have risk-neutral investors, and on the aggressive side, we would have risk-seeking investors. So, for different types of investors, there are different kinds of products that are well suited and best suited to their persona or investment profile per se, or the risk profile per se. So for a very risk averse investor who basically does not want to take on too much risk and is trying to achieve a lot of predictability, sustainability, and a lot of visibility in their returns, there are options in terms of more fixed income oriented products. We could talk about small savings schemes. We could talk about traditional bank fixed deposits. We could talk about certain select mutual fund categories like debt mutual funds, these slightly conservative hybrid mutual funds. So these are best suited to conservative investors. We talk about risk neutral investors, who are basically the people who simply want to be compensated for the amount of risk that they're taking. They have nothing in favor of or against risk. All that they're seeking is to compensate, to achieve due compensation for the level of risk that they're taking. So for such investors, a brilliant option is mutual funds, because mutual funds offer a variety of categories and a variety of investment plays. So within mutual funds itself, such investors typically tend to gravitate towards more flexible mandates, more optimal investing strategies, risk optimal investing strategies like flexi cap funds, multi cap funds. We talk about balance advantage funds in the hybrid category. So these broad mandate, flexible mandate mutual funds are best suited to risk neutral investors, because they manage to participate in the upside while effectively managing against the downside. As we move towards the far end and we talk about risk seeking investors, these are the investors who are typically on the lookout for risk. They want risk, they have an appetite for risk. Their North Star metric is returns. They want to achieve returns no matter what, and they don't mind if it comes at the cost of taking incremental risk. So such investors move towards products that tend to have very high volatility. And obviously, it goes without saying that they gravitate towards capital market linked products and towards equity as an asset class. So such investors within mutual funds, they would move towards highly volatile mutual fund categories. For instance, it could include your sectoral funds, your thematic funds. It could include mid and small cap funds, wherein the returns are slightly lumpy. It comes in cycles. The volatility is steep, but when it comes, it really showers. It really rains when the returns finally do come in. So these categories do really well for such investors, and you would notice that such investors also tend to build up direct equity portfolios. They towards a certain extent, they would also include derivatives, FNOs as a part of their portfolio and the regular portfolio management exercise. There are thematic PMS and AIF schemes, which are generally reserved for those with ability to invest up to higher ticket sizes, because the minimum ticket sizes are really high in PMS funds and alternate investment funds. But the ones having an aggressive risk appetite, or who are risk seeking by nature, tend to invest in such thematic products wherein the risk is really high, but the return potential is probably outsized and far greater than that.
So talking about these three profiles, how can an investor from time to time change all these profiles within their investment journey?
So it is a journey, right? The most important keyword that you spoke about is a journey. At some point in life, most of us go through each of these phases as an investor. At certain point in life, we would better associate ourselves as risk averse or risk neutral or risk seeking at different points in time. And all of this has to do with the background that we have in terms of our financial, economic, social background. Our personal preferences, our behavioral preferences, our behavioral biases, and our objectives, our goals, and our aspirations. A culmination of the past, present, and the future results in the personality type that we have as an investor today. So the kind of risk profile that we have is largely a byfactor of these three things, and it also determines our investing style. So at different life stages, one would typically categorize a person having a very high risk-taking ability, and risk-taking ability is defined by very as a crude example, as an individual who has very limited responsibilities, who has income way higher than the expenses, who has all the basic needs met, and is living a comfortable lifestyle, and yet left with a lot of money to invest. This could typically indicate a high ability to take on risk. At the same time, a high willingness to take risk has a lot to do from a personal background standpoint. Whereas if the person's background permits him to be a risk-taking person, if he belongs to a conservative background or an aggressive background, if he personally is a risk taker, if he has the appetite to take on more risk for more returns. So a combination of these two things, like I pointed out at the start, a combination of such ability and willingness really positions and shapes how a person acts while finally investing.
All right, so crucial points about knowing your investor personality, and a very crucial step in your entire journey of investment. Thank you so much, Nirav, for being on the show and helping our viewers with that. We move on, and next up we have IDFC First Bank presents Leaders of Tomorrow, India's most awarded television show for small businesses, in an exclusive conversation with Aditi Parekh, chairperson FICCI from Ahmedabad chapter, encouraging women entrepreneurship in Gujarat, and how FICCI Flow members support women at the grassroots level at Ahmedabad Springboard. One pit stop on our Pan-India Ground event series. We also discussed about big ideas and trends in the skincare market that will shape the industry, especially with the growing role of science and technology in personal care industry, with Shari Mehrotra, CEO and founder Fisdom. Listen in.